All right, hurricane season will be here before you know it.
Mm-hmm. You claim it already is.
It really is. It might as well be. Starts officially on June 1st, lasts through November 30th. For us, it's really, I always say that after October 15th, we're good to go. But I think statistically, October 10th is the end of our hurricane season, between the 3rd and the 10th. But it's really important for the month of June, July, August, and September for us. That is for sure. And we're going to have a pair of conversations today about emergency preparedness during hurricane season. Our first is with Mark Sloan. Mark Sloan is the Homeland Security and Emergency Management Coordinator for Harris County. I had the pleasure of being at their emergency management luncheon just last week, and that's why I wanted to have you on. Mark, welcome to Hello Houston.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here, and thanks, Frank.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes,
all right. So one of the main things that I got out of the luncheon from your conversation there is that the counties are going to be more coordinated than we've ever been to get the message out to people when it's necessary.
Yeah, it's a high priority for us is to make sure that everybody understands this isn't about a single jurisdiction. It's about the entire Gulf Coast, and we're all vulnerable to the effects of a hurricane or tropical storm and the inland impacts with wind and extra rain that might fall as far north as College Station. So yes, that coordination is something we work on very hard to make sure that Galveston, Brazoria, Fort Bend, Chambers, Waller, Walker, and counties to the north like Montgomery County understand what can happen in a tropical event.
So, Mark, just speaking of the Gulf Coast and all the areas, I mean, just last year from April to early July, a period of less than 3 months, the region faced impacts from multiple weather events. We had derecho in May, then we had Hurricane Beryl in July. There were also smaller windstorms that popped up around the area. How are you all handling this new norm of not just recurring weather events, but they're also occurring very closely together?
Well, the weather is something we're always monitoring.
Yeah.
And it brings us opportunities to coordinate our response plans. And last year was another opportunity with the flooding, the rains that were to the north, and then the flooding of the San Jacinto River, to the winds events, to the Hurricane Beryl. And one unique thing that most people don't understand is when you come into Houston, Harris County, we average a presidentially declared disaster every 9 months. We happen to have two within a 90-day period.
Well, the derecho.
Yes.
And then Beryl.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And those impacts, that's what we train for. That's what we put plans together for. That's what I tell my team. It's game day. That's what we're here to do and to help facilitate the coordination. We expect the population in our region to be ready for whatever Mother Nature brings our way. But we also want them to enjoy life and to go on about their business, but understand that we're vulnerable to all types of weather situations.
There's always lessons learned. Believe me, 42 years of learning lessons.
Yeah.
Not to put you too much on the spot here, but what did you? I mean, it's hard to learn from the derecho except to get out of the way. But what have you all learned from Beryl? Because that was I would say it wasn't a badly forecast storm, but it certainly took a lot of the area by surprise.
Well, I think that over the years, my first storms go back to Tropical Storm Allison and going into Ike and other storms that we've had. I think the technology and the capacity of the National Weather Service, the Hurricane Center, has gotten so much better that cone of uncertainty now is smaller.
Sure.
So people aren't looking at what we used to have in Hurricane Ike, which was the entire Gulf Coast was either under a hurricane watch or warning at one point in time, to watching Beryl and saying, it's not going to come here. And then when it does shift, it does change, it catches people off guard. I think that messaging is something we have to continue to keep people aware of, that weather situations will change dramatically very quickly, not to assume it's not going to hit us.
Well, and the Hurricane Center wants people to be aware that the cone is smaller, so the forecast might be better, but the effects, that's just where it's going to go inland. The cone does not mean you won't be affected by this storm. It just means this is where we expect it to go, and some of the worst effects will likely happen. But you can have tornado outbreak 500 miles away.
That can happen, and just like we watched with Hurricane Harvey, we were not the jurisdiction of landfall. We were the inland impacts of rain.
Correct.
And, Mark, you mentioned that you all are constantly monitoring the weather. How much of the OEM depend on the National Weather Service and NOAA now with major cuts?
Well, they're a crucial partner to us. So we're in constant communication with our partners at Galveston, at the Weather Service, with the National Hurricane Center outside of Miami, and talking to the experts who give us their input and what they can anticipate is going to impact our jurisdiction. With people taking the early retirement and losing the institutional knowledge, we're losing our relationships with folks that we have known for many years.
Are you looking at me, Mark?
I can, yes, sir.
Frank feels shamed.
Let me jump in here and say, if you have questions for Mark about emergency management, about storms, or whatever you want to chat with him about, give us a call, 713-440-8870. A really broad and kind of ridiculous question, but that's what I'll ask. No such thing. Is, should we even be living here? Is this an area we should be in? It seems as though nature is trying to tell us, go away.
Well, yes, we should be living here.
Okay.
It's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful part of the country. And as you know, many people are moving
But
here.
I don't mean as individuals. I mean as humans. Yeah. Is this a place we should be? Or is nature just telling us these areas are going to be... We can't fight nature, can we?
Well, we can't fight nature. What we can is be prepared for the environment in which we choose to live.
Okay.
You can decide if you want to live in the north and deal with blizzards and road closures and the cold weather, or living in Hawaii near a volcano. I think
Suddenly things don't seem so bad here when you throw in the hurt.
So you have to, it's important to understand what is the weather environment, what are my risks and threats when you move to a jurisdiction, live in a jurisdiction, and enjoy the life with your family.
Well, and keep in mind, Ernie, that most of us live near a port city because with shipping, and that was the way that the world worked forever.
Right.
I mean, you had to have ports, and that's why we started living here. The mistake we're making is we not only continue to build square houses, we build them at the coast, and we build them out of wood. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they have a Caribbean storm. Those houses are made out of cement for the most part or have good hip roofs. They're very well built, and we tend to go against code, don't you think, Mark?
Well, in certain part, again, the jurisdictions in Texas, the counties have limited building code capacity to put in place. The cities can put building codes in. But I think that the way we build creates our own vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. In Houston, we build roadways to retain water in heavy rain events. It's part to get it into the systems, into the creeks, the bayous. And a lot of people don't know that if they haven't lived here for an extended period of time. But yeah, always looking to enhance your property. When we talk about making a plan, it includes, do I need roof clips to make sure my roof doesn't blow off? Do I have wind protection for my windows if I'm close to the coast?
Cutting those trees down.
Making sure you pick up the debris in your yard so it doesn't end up 3 blocks away.
Mark, what would you say, given your experience, what surprises you most after going through so many hurricane seasons and weather events, given your position?
I think the one thing that surprises me the most is there's always somebody that goes on television and said, I never thought this could happen to me. And
you're telling them, think it could happen to you.
And because I think that people are wishful thinkers, that they hope it never happens, and they don't take the time to prepare themselves and their families and protect their property. So when they are impacted, I always thought it was going to turn and go to Beaumont. I always thought it was, I didn't think it could rain this much. Or, I think that's always what surprises me. As much as we try to message preparedness and being aware of our risk and threats, we also have to understand that our population here is constantly changing, and there's an ongoing messaging that all of us need to be part of.
Yeah, I always we didn't expect this to happen. And I'm like, we've been on 24 hours, 7 days of the week, telling you it was coming. Eric from Meyerland, I have a feeling what Eric wants to talk about. Meyerland's really been through it with Harvey and the Memorial Day floods and all of these floods. But he's on the phone for you, Mark. What do you have to ask, Eric?
Hey guys, appreciate taking my call. As you said, I'm in the Meyerland area, really just trying to understand, as you said, We've had such bad flooding over the last handful of years. Wanted to see if you think the changes that have been made over the last couple of years are going to have any difference when we get a big rain event like we've had in the past. Thanks a lot.
Well, I think that there's always mitigation projects that are ongoing throughout the entire flood control district. And I think that there's construction that is going on to help take more volume of rain. The problem is sometimes we get an excess volume of rain in a very short period of time, and flooding is something that this part of the country is very vulnerable to and susceptible to. And I know that the studies that go on and the projects that are ongoing don't happen overnight. It takes years, sometimes decades, to complete. But if you look back to the flooding events from the 40s and through the 60s into the 70s, I think the population has grown here, and the capacity to move water has increased dramatically.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with Mark Sloan, the Homeland Security and Emergency Management Coordinator for Harris County. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
I guess my quick question here would be, looking at what we're heading into, how prepared do you feel you are right now for the season coming up? And what changes and things have you folks done to be prepared for this?
I think we're very well prepared from the local perspective in terms of my office, in terms of the partners. I think we're more prepared with new people that have come and witnessed and lived through Beryl last year. I don't think that the public really can comprehend the real impacts of a major hurricane impacting the Gulf Coast, especially in our area.
We discussed that a little bit at the luncheon last week. Let's discuss it more here on Hello Houston. I doubt a 5 would hit us, but a 4 certainly could. A Cat 4, 140 mile an hour winds, that's not out of the question. And what happens?
It's a bad day.
It's a very bad day.
Yeah. We have not had a very big wind event. The winds of last year when the storm came through took out the tree limbs, takes out power. Wind speeds in a hurricane increase every 100 feet above the ground level. And with the high rises, the apartments, the condos, we'll have more windows that are damaged and blown out. Just with the debris that's picked up off the coast. In Alicia, the windows at Texas A&M were damaged once it came ashore. So the infrastructure damage that could occur with a Cat 4, we're not talking days, not even weeks to restore power. We could be talking about extended into months with the infrastructure, the damage to potentially even our roadway systems.
When you talk about the electricity, though, I'm just curious, are we doing all that can be done to protect that? I understand some things are beyond our control. Some things, putting them up is better than putting them underground for some reasons and vice versa. Are we approaching this from your point of view the right way to preserve our electricity?
Well, I think that with ERCOT, CenterPoint being our primary supplier, because they're really a distribution network, are doing a lot of work in order to try to maintain that infrastructure, just like any other critical infrastructure, because it's food supply also. It's about water.
Right.
And power is a key element to that, from traffic signals to be pump gas out of the station. So I think we're in a good place. I think we're vulnerable in a lot of ways. Due to high winds, sometimes there's just things that are completely out of our control on the distribution side. But we have to. My role is to plan for the worst case scenario.
Is there a place, region, someone that's kind of tackled this better that you look to as they're figuring it out, or is it just?
We communicate on a regular basis with CenterPoint. And our electrical.
I don't mean the provider, but I mean a
Fort
region.
Myers or somewhere.
Is there
I don't think
somebody
so.
who is, or are we all in the same thing together at this point?
At this point, I think we're in it together because again, they're a private company and they're doing their best, and we want to make sure we keep pressure on them to make sure that the infrastructure has as much mitigation capacity completed before we're impacted with a wind event that causes a prolonged outage of power.
We want to invite you to the conversation, 713-440-8870. We have a call from Joseph from Tomball. Hi, Joseph. What is your question for Mark?
First of all, always, every day, waiting for this moment with you guys. You are doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yes, but what I wanted to say is that, yes, maybe the institutions are ready for what is coming, but I'm worried about the construction industry because our government is pushing those people in fear, those who do the landscaping, remember the fence, those people who do the roofing. And most of those jobs is immigrant people who do the job. I don't know what our politicians are thinking, and they're living in their own bubble, but we have to think about the aftermath of the hurricane because it's going to be very, very bad.
Joseph,
that's fair. I mean, who's going to help
Thank you
fix
for
it up?
calling, Joseph.
Do you guys think about that kind of thing? Because there are a lot of the people, like when you were talking earlier about limbs and stuff, and you think, I had a note here about what do we do to prepare, and you've told me in the past, cut off those dead limbs, get your home ready for these kind of incidents. When we have a reduction in that workforce that may do repairs and all that work, is that something you guys factor in?
Availability of workforce is something that we're always concerned about. It's it's what we call the last deliverable mile on how do we actually get back to a new state of normal. And that's each individual, that's each organization, not just the big box stores, but it's also the smaller mom and pop shops, right? We all have to get back up on our feet. And where does that workforce come from? So I work for 4.8 million residents of Harris County, and I report to an elected official. And my role is to try to get the 4.8 million people ready, prepared, understand that small businesses have to have a continuity of operations plan. Even if you're a landscaper or you are a small grocery store on the corner in a neighborhood.
Speaking of which, we have a question from Aaron from Clear Lake about evacuations. Aaron, are you there?
Yes, I am.
What's your question?
Well, so I live in Clear Lake. Been living here since 2017. I'm originally from Houston, and I'll try to keep this brief. But my question is, I was here when Rita hit. A lot of people that live here weren't here when Rita hit, and I saw the mess on the freeways. I know they have expanded 45 south of Beltway 8, but to be honest with you, as soon as you get to downtown, it's still 2 lanes. Even with contraflow, we would have trouble getting all these people out. We did the first time, and now we have millions more people who've moved to Houston, which is great. We want people moving here.
Right.
But there's no safe way to get everybody out.
Well, we've talked about evacuations at the luncheon. Tell us what we were discussing then.
I mean, that's an important message is that, remember, during Hurricane Rita was the first time the state of Texas actually had a law signed for mandatory or involuntary evacuations. Most local governments didn't understand it, and the population didn't. And we were coming off of a major event of Katrina, and people thought that a Category 4 or 5 coming our way would be the same thing that happened in New Orleans.
Yep, 3 weeks later.
And people were thinking we also lived in a bowl and we were going to flood. So too many people evacuated. So the evacuation process was changed and updated, so that there were zip codes and color instead of just colors to know what area you lived in. There's a zip code zone map, and we are running from the water, hiding from the wind. So people should understand, are you part of the evacuation area? Based on the size of the storm and the water that's being pushed up the coast and inland, are the areas in which local government is going to coordinate from Galveston, Brazoria, Chambers County, Harris County, and others, is to coordinate that effort so we're moving from the coast inland first.
All right. Well, I'll tell you, Mark, we always say to military people, thank you for your service. Your Homeland Security, we thank you for your service. You guys are 24/7 when we need you, and we appreciate you being here on Hello Houston today.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much. Celeste?